What's up, Ramblers? I know you want to get into today's podcast, but real quick, make sure you're keeping up by following Assistance HQ and Offsource HQ across all platforms, anywhere on all social medias, to keep up with all of the latest content, updates, exclusive, and everything else. And for business owners, visit offsource.tech for all of your office outsourcing needs, a virtual assistant for every occasion. All the links are in the bio, so go check them out right now. Now, here's your podcast. Before we begin, a moment from our sponsor. Hey guys, welcome back to another wonderful episode of The Ramblings. I'm your host, Angelo Roberts, and with us we have Renee Raquenna. She is a financial literacy coach, up and coming and on the move as well, very progressive with everything that she's been through. Introduce yourself. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me here, Angelo.
No problem. It's wonderful. So Renee, what is it being a financial literacy coach, and how did you get into this particular role?
So, my finance background actually led me to want to do something better in the world and leave a better carbon footprint for people. So, I'm traditionally a CPA. I've been in finance all my life. I've got a bachelor's in economics and a bachelor's in accounting and information system. And I always wanted to be an investment banker, but at the time I was declaring my major, the stock market crashed that day. So, if that's not a sign, I don't know what is. I picked up accounting because I would always have a job because money never goes out of business, and I just took my career through that cycle instead of through the investment banking cycle. But I love all of the experience that I gained throughout the years. It's very varied. Traditional CPA started out in auditing the big accounting firms. I was with Arthur Anderson for years and a couple of smaller ones before then. And then, certain things happen in the world and the economy, and Enron pushed us out with the Justice Department. And then I moved on and I worked with Footlocker in a lot of large global companies. And that's really what my sweet spot is to be able to connect with people from around the world in whatever language and whatever capabilities they're in. I like being able to see how different people live in different circumstances around the world. And if I can add a little bit of myself to them that makes them better, that's what makes me sleep better at night.
Wow, that's a wonderful kind of role. So, in working with these big companies, what was, I guess, your internal kind of working? What was your day to day life looking like?
So day to day, when you're growing up as an accountant, you're really bred early on to be a workaholic. So by nature, we don't sleep. We run on high octane all day, all year long, and we just have figured out how to manage to live in society. Although our families don't necessarily agree with that, but we manage to do the most that we can with the 24 hours that are in a day and 365 within the year, because we're always trying to add value to somebody. So in growing up in all of these different capacities that I've had, I've moved through these corporate environments. But while the companies are global, you need to think 24 hours a day and you need to be 10 steps ahead of other people. You never know who you're competing with, who you have to impress. So that's why your mind is always on the go. So you wake up and already there's a new idea. But my ventures took me into the bigger banks, into the bigger insurance companies, always in some sort of strategic visionary position to be able to help companies see into the future on how to reach more people and make more money. So that's where I've spent the majority of my career.
That's a lot. So, I guess something natural, though. I guess as entrepreneurs, the masses aren't necessarily drawn to some of the things that we like, such as being numbers and accounting and economics. Um, being said, that field is very saturated with white males. Being a woman and a woman of color, what has been your experience and some of the challenges that you've had to overcome in in your industries?
So it's sort of overt, but also it can be in your face as well. So in corporate America, there's one position, one person, one quota. So you're fighting all the time, not only against other women, but you're fighting against men as well. So there, if there's some sort of diversity quota that they need to reach, they'll fill it with a woman, but a colored woman won't be their first choice. So they'll try to find some other way to fill that diversity quota, and we will be the last thought in their mind. Only if they have to, it doesn't matter that I'm 10 times faster, 10 times smarter, 100 times better in delivery than most other people, the color and the female is what will hold you back. There is a glass ceiling. Everyone realizes that, everyone knows it. You can navigate the game only so much, but the game is not designed for you to win as a colored female. So in the financial services industry, what's happening now is the older white men are retiring. So they're really the baby boomer generation. They're turning 65, 10,000 a day, and they're retiring another 10,000 a day. They're born between 1946 and 1964. The guys who ran the industry and made it what it is and gave it the persona that it has and the reputation, they're about to exit. The newer guys don't want to do what the older guys had to do to get where they are. So if you're not a college educated Ivy League white male with friends with money, you generally are not going to survive in that environment. So what's happening is now the financial services industry is shifting. Middle America and even the 1% want to deal with somebody who looks like them or at least has a similar experience who can understand them. And everybody doesn't necessarily have a boatload of cash sitting around, but they still want to generate wealth and be able to understand finance and economics for their family to leave for the next generation. So they're looking for people who look like me and you and younger people, millennials. We need people from every demographic and every gender to be able to help these people understand, how do I move my family from where we are now into the next millennium, having more knowledge and more assets and resources than where we are right now. So that's the name of the game. How do you figure out, with a little bit of knowledge, how to move yourself forward so that your generation doesn't do the same thing that the prior generations did?
I like that. That's one of the things that my dad always said. You're always trying to improve each generation. If you're not doing better than me, then I didn't do my job. So I guess looking forward, as what are some of the obstacles that you personally have had to overcome? Like what how did you get to where you are, and who did you have to beat out?
So I had to step on a few people. I had to get stepped on a lot of times before I realized that that's the name of the game. So as I got a little bit older, show your good work. Good work is rewarded with more work, but that gets you exposure. So you can't always think about, am I winning right now? I play the long game. I want to win over the long term. I'm not necessarily looking for a win today that's going to last me my entire lifetime. I need little wins that are going to help me master the entire game. So what I've done is partner myself with different people in different industries, but especially when I was in corporate America, I made relationships. I learned leadership. I went to learn how to lead leaders. And I took that class many times in different companies so that I would understand how to negotiate and how to interact with other people who don't necessarily look like me, but are controlling the monopoly board, right? So you have to have partnerships and alliances. Some people have to hold your hand, some people have to push you from the back, and some people also have to block you so that you learn how to fight and move around them. So that makes you strong. Everything handed to you is not going to make you strong. Your fight, your adversity, and your diversity will make you strong and make you last in the game. So I've had to fight a few people, always nice, sometimes a little bit of yelling, but it gets you the respect that's earned. It gets you the respect that's deserved. And it also brings people to you because they know that you can deliver and you're the right person for that job and that piece of information. It all comes down to your mastermind alliances.
That's key. You've had to balance a lot of different fine lines, I'm sure. What's your key to balancing being aggressive to not being seen as the angry black woman, to being, wanting to vocalize but not being seen as radicalized?
One is always know your stuff. You have to always know what you're talking about. You have to be confident. The most confident person wins every conversation. And it's about, I can be right or I can be successful. So you may win the argument, but that doesn't mean you're going to win the battle. So me knowing what I need to know in order to help you win will help me win. So that's part of leaders learning how to lead other leaders. I have to understand what the winning point for you is And I have to make you see that I can help you win, and that will help me win as well. So there has to be something in it for you in order for you to be able to jump onto my ship to get you and me to where we both need to be. So it's always going to be a partnership. Nobody can live in this world alone. It just doesn't happen.
I agree. So I think you have this long and illustrious kind of career going, and it's been all geared in one direction. Is that the direction that you have always wanted? What is the 6-year-old dreams and aspirations that you were thinking of? Because as the show knows, I am what I consider a pure bit entrepreneur. I knew in fifth grade, fourth grade, third grade that what I was going to be doing, and what I wanted to make a business, and I wanted to take it to Wall Street and everything. And so I always set all of my life in high school and middle school, things and activities up around being able to do that. And so it sounds like that might be something a little bit similar. Is economics and finance something that was always tugging for you?
So, no, I actually started out, I've had a varied slew of interests in my life. So, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a senator. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be lots of things. I wanted to be a mathematician. I wanted to build bridges. As a little kid, I had so many different interests in this world. And I ended up going to one of the top performing high schools in New York City and in the country that was STEM related. It's science and technology. So that's where all of my interests were fed. But your parents always tell you you need to find one thing and stick with it. Get good at it. You can't be a jack of all trades and a master of none, is what the old people used to say. So find something and stick with it and just stay with it. And then the old mindset of cradle to grave, where you would work for one company for the rest of your life, they took care of you, that didn't exist for us when we started to grow up. So in my mind, I'm thinking, how do I get to do all of these different things while I'm alive? And thankfully, we're living much longer, so people are living more than age 100. I'm going to get to do everything that I always wanted to do in my life. So I took everything that I was learning along the way, and I would just parlay it into a little bit of something here and there. So I'm in a lot of different mastermind alliance groups. I'm in a lot of different clubs. I network with a lot of different types of people because my interests are varied and I always want to be challenged. I get very bored with the mundane and the same day to day information. I have to be doing something new and cutting edge all the time. I don't base jump, but I want to know that I can do something that's going to shift the planet on its axis and make a difference for the next generation. That's where my mind is always thinking. It's got to be exciting and a little bit on the edge and dangerous, but it's going to have a great outcome at the end.
So, for a lot of people listening, I guess their next question is, finance is exciting?
So finance alone is not necessarily exciting. And even when I was an accountant, I always switched it around to do something exciting with it. So that's why I always ended up in strategy and vision, because that's the creative side. You can do something with the numbers or make the company do something to get the numbers. So what I'm doing now is I've shifted from focusing on the company side to the individual family side. And I know that I can do creative things with them when it comes to money. So everyone these days is worried about, at least middle America, how do we make it out of here into the next couple of years? Everybody's very worried with the pandemic and the economic cycle that's shifting again. So what I can do for them is I can sit, and whatever their dreams are, they don't necessarily have to push into a basket. We can figure out how to help you still achieve those dreams creatively. So that could mean I have to navigate and pull you over the river and through the ocean and do a few things to get your financial life in order so that you'll be financially independent and debt free. But also, we're going to create a legacy for you. And we're going to do that through educating you. So it's all about financial literacy. How does the IRS work? How do the big banks on Wall Street work? How do the lenders work? That's a monopoly game by itself. So unless you understand the rules of the game, you'll always be trapped in the jail of monopoly. You'll never get to circle the board. But once you understand how you acquire property and how you make that property change into something bigger and which one should I acquire and all of these different things, that's strategy. You have to understand what's sitting underneath there, the platform, so that you can utilize that to the best of your ability and help your family in the future.
So I want to give some insight for some people then. What are some of your top money insights or top money rules for people right now that is like, hey, I'm going through it. What can I do right now to like boom, boom, boom? I don't know if that makes sense. What are your top money insights?
It does. So there are really like 6 pillars, 6 key pillars you could think about. Understand what's coming in and out of your bank account. A lot of people don't. You'd be surprised. So because we live in this world of swipe, swipe, swipe with a debit card or a credit card, you don't necessarily realize how much money is leaving. But sometimes, if you're an entrepreneur like yourself and you have multiple streams of income, you may not even be keeping track of what's coming in. So, getting your arms around as a base level, a foundation, just like a house, understand what's coming in and going out. The next thing is you need to protect your income earner. People will insure their homes and their cars. What about the income earner in your family? What if something happens to them? What if they pass away? Do you now need a GoFundMe? What happens? Does the family fall apart? Do you lose your home? Do you have to move? Or protect your retirement assets. Everybody thinks that being all in the stock market means I've got to risk it all. And hopefully it will be there when I go to retire. There's ways that you can manage that. You can insure those things, your income earner and your retirement assets. And then you need to think about getting out of debt. Debt is the single biggest killer of wealth in the society. So there's a little math and there's strategies. You don't necessarily have to go to consolidation, but there's ways for you to get out of debt and learn the mindset of how to stay out of debt. So sometimes money and economics have to go with mindset, right? And then the next one is emergency cash. You have to have a pool of emergency cash. God forbid these banks are shut down, the ATM cards are done, the machines are empty. What are you
Oh,
going to do? It has happened.
oh, I thought you meant like have like a savings. Like I have savings, like but it's in like a bank. I didn't know you meant like cold hard cash.
You need cold hard cash. Because remember when the we had a hurricane here in New York, Hurricane Sandy, the ports were closed. We couldn't even get oil into the ports to bring to the gas stations. How do you get gas for your car? How do you get gas for your generator? Do you barter with somebody? Do you trade groceries? Do you go somewhere? What do you do? So you always need to have one, money in the bank, emergency cash, but then you also need to have money securely saved away close by where you can trade with neighbors if you need to. You never know what could happen. And then you've got to be always figuring, I need to save for long term. You know you're going to live, figure out a little bit of money over a long period of time at a decent rate of return. That will create wealth right there. And then understanding the tax code will help you preserve that wealth so that it all doesn't get paid back into the IRS in taxes. So those are 6 pillars that people should be thinking about, but in that order.
Why in that order?
Because that order will secure the family as best as possible for worst case scenario. So at the bottom, you're thinking about what's happening to me today. And then you're moving up into midterm and then long term. So if you can't manage to live throughout this next year, there's no point in worrying about what's going to happen 50 years from now because you're not going to make it. Right. So, and if your income earner drops out, there's no point in worrying about retirement assets if you're about to lose your house today. So there's things that you need to think about in a priority so that you don't end up with a GoFundMe. You've got proper protection to protect the family, as is. I'm very much against GoFundMes. Everyone needs to prepare. Your lack of preparation is not my emergency. So you also have to worry about if I wait too late to worry about retirement and I'm moving on, it may be too late to catch up. So there's a retirement red zone starting around age 45 to 60. If you haven't done anything, you have time to catch up the next 15, 16 years. You wait too long into that, it's nearly impossible to catch up without a growth mechanism to help you. You cannot save your way to retirement. You must invest to get to retirement.
I think that is key. You can't save your way. It's there's no return on it at all.
Absolutely not. Inflation will outpace your savings.
How fastly? That's not a
If,
word, but
if
how
even if
fast?
inflation is 3%, let's say that at the low, if we're lucky, what is a bank offering you in savings? less than 1%.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think like what 0.5.
Yeah. And even if you had a CD or some of these other investments, some of them are less than 3. If you can't keep up with inflation, it's just eating away your money. You're dead in the water.
So what made you switch from corporate to individual?
So sadly enough, I realized that after the last stock market crash in 2008 and the bailout came along, and I was working in one of the big banks, and I realized that I probably was part of the problem and not part of the solution, because I've always felt as though when it comes to large borrowing, mortgages, credit cards, and all sorts of debt, including student loan, if people truly understood what they were signing up for, they might think about it before they sign the dotted line. And I always felt as though there was no economic education for people to understand. You're signing up for a 30-year mortgage. What does that really mean? Do you know how much you're actually going to pay in the long run? If you're okay with that, sign on the dotted line. If that blows your mind to think that you could pay 3 times as much as what you think you're borrowing, then you might want to think and take a second thought about that. Same thing with credit cards. There's this whole magical number called the rule of 72. The interest rate that you're paying, that can double every 2, 3 years if you're not careful with these high interest rate cards. If you don't get out of debt, you will never be able to stay above float. So that alone made me realize that I've got to be there to help people who don't understand. And when you know better, you do better. It came to me that I think that I helped cause this 2008 problem where people ran out of money. And I was working for a
How,
company that just kept raising interest rates on them.
how does that make you part of the problem though? You need a job.
Because but that's the thing. We all think that we're doing a good job, right? We're just in a little with the blinders on, and our mindset is, I just want to do a good job. But what's the job you're doing? The
No,
job
I
you're
mean you
doing
have a
is
job. You need a job though. I didn't say you're doing a good job. You're just doing you need a
you're
job
doing
though.
a job.
You need to live.
True, you do. But what's the job you're doing? And not only in finance, but what about in some of these other industries that are killing the planet and producing all of this extra methane and things that are killing and global warming and anything else that's going on? There's things that you can do for a company, but do you have to do that thing? Or do you have to be the one to design the thing that makes them the most money? But the only way that they make money is that it hurts someone else. I mean, think about it. For a corporation who makes money on lending, they're in business to keep other people in debt. Keeping other people in debt for a lifetime means that they never create generational wealth.
I'm
So
glad
that's
that
where I
you're on
put
our
it together.
side.
Yeah, that's where I put it together. And I was like, I don't want to do it again. So my thought process was, let me get out of here. I'll go to a company who needs help getting back on their feet. And I did that. And I went there and I helped them as much as I could. And then I realized, well, the glass ceiling is here as well. They don't want the brown people to advance here. They just certainly don't want any women here. So what am I doing? Who am I helping? And I wasn't spending enough time with my own family. So when you're in corporate, you give your all to that company. But I've seen people pass away at work. I've seen people pass away commuting on the railroad and on the train. What happens to their job? It still gets done, right?
It does. Not unfortunately, but it just life. That's how that goes. So yeah, definitely focusing on your family is. So was that a change? Also, do you now spend like a lot more time with your family?
I do. So in the capacity I'm in now, I'm building my own brokerage. I'm helping other people transition either out of a career that they're in, that they want to be in financial services, or maybe they need a second source of income. I can train them on certain things and help them get licensed in a reputable industry to help that family. And then because I'm my own business, I can make my own hours. I can work from home. Thanks to COVID right now, everything is hybrid. I can work online or I can go to the office. I can see people or not see people, but I also get the ability to work throughout the entire country, all 50 states, and in Canada as well, and Puerto Rico. So my whole premise is let me spend more time with my family. And especially these last 9 months, I think that I've gotten the opportunity and I took advantage of it and I understood it to be able to spend the time with them that was so needed and that I had taken away from them over the last 20 or so years. So I'm thankful for it.
We all have something to be thankful for. So before I have to get you out of here, we always ask, what is the number one, or give one, doesn't have to be your number one, but give a piece of advice for the people listening out right now. Doesn't necessarily have to be for finance. It could be motivation. It could be a tip on how to reach a particular goal. What's your one thing?
Keep your mind open to a growth mindset. Every opportunity that comes to you doesn't look the way that you want it to, but you always need to keep your mind open and moving, because if you keep it closed, there's a little bit of atrophy in your brain. It starts to shrink and die. But keeping your mind open to different circumstances and to people and networking will allow you to truly experience all that this world and this country has to offer by embracing the people you meet and the opportunities that you say yes to.
It's been wonderful. That's a great note. You are in the top 5 guests, top 3 maybe.
All right, thank you.
I think you've brought a lot of value. It's been very technical. It's been a very great episode, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Before you go, Ramblers, if you enjoyed today's podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and make sure you're following me across all platforms at Assistance HQ. Catch up on exclusive content and keep track of everything going on at OffSource. See you in October.